Hello everyone, welcome to Homeschool and we are with the chapter Diversity in Living Organisms. So in our previous video, we have discussed everything about chordates. So when do you call an organism as chordates, right? And what are the main characteristics of chordates? And chordates are divided into two categories. What are they? Protochordata and vertebrata. So again our vertebrates are divided into 5 classes, right? Pisces, amphibia, reptilia, aves and mammals. So we are with the first class under vertebrata, that is Pisces. So what do you mean by Pisces? They are fishes. They are fishes. Fishes, all varieties of fishes are placed under a class Pisces. Clear? And where do fishes live? Definitely, fishes live in water. So what I can write here is, they are aquatic. Yes or no? They are aquatic. That means they can live in fresh water or they can live in ocean, everywhere. In every type of water, in every type of water habitats, they can live. Right? So I can say they are exclusively aquatic. Yes or no? They live only in water. So I can say exclusively aquatic. Right? And the next point is, their body is streamlined. They have streamlined type of body, isn't it? Body is streamlined. What do you mean by streamlined? Just observe the shape of a fish, guys. Let me draw the fish here. So, this is what the basic structure, and this structure, this shape is called streamlined shape, right? You have a peculiar shape for a fish. This is what we call streamlined shape. That's why we have written the body is streamlined, boat shaped. Clear? Fine. And the next point here is, skin is covered with scales or plates, isn't it? Say, is the skin of a fish look smooth? Never. The skin is covered with scales, or we call them as plates also, right? So what I'll write here, skin is covered with scales or plates. So this is one of the basic point. And the next one is, say, how do they live? How do they take oxygen? They take dissolved oxygen from water. So even in the water, there is oxygen which is dissolved in water. So that dissolved oxygen is taken up by the fishes. Every living organism wants oxygen, right, for their life. So these fishes, since they are present in water, they take dissolved oxygen that is dissolved in water. So dissolved oxygen from water. So how do they respire? How they take oxygen and how they give out carbon dioxide? In humans we have so-called lungs. So lungs help us to take oxygen and to give carbon dioxide, right? So here in the fishes, this respiration occurs through gills. So the next point is, the respiration is through gills. So they don't have lungs, but they have something called gills. Clear? And they have two-chambered heart. So I told you in the previous class, all vertebrates have heart and they have chambers in the heart. That is, they have certain compartments in the heart. Okay. So how many chambers are there in the fish's heart? 2 chambers. That's why we call they have two-chambered heart. And the next and important point is, they are cold-blooded organisms, okay, or I can say they are cold-blooded animals. So what do you mean by cold-blooded animals? It doesn't mean that their blood is cold. No. Cold-blooded means these organisms cannot control their body temperature. Okay. So as the temperature of environment changes, their body temperature also changes. Clear? So our body will have a particular temperature, a particular heat inside, right? So this particular temperature changes according to environment. See, when these fishes are there in water, so in water, what will be the temperature? Cold, isn't it? So the body temperature is also cold, right? It is not that the blood is cold. The body temperature is cold when they are in water. But once they come outside environment is not cold. It will be little warm. So their body temperature also will get converted into warm. Okay. But if the body temperature is very high, I mean, if it is too hot, when they come out, when they feel too hot, they cannot control that temperature. They cannot adjust to the temperature, so they will die. Okay. So once they come from water to land, what happens? They cannot control the highest temperatures. They cannot adjust their body to very high temperatures. So because of this reason also, they may die. So what do you mean by cold-blooded animals? They cannot control their body temperature. That is their body temperature changes as the temperature of environment changes. The temperature of environment changes. Yes or no? Okay, capital T means what? Temperature here. So as the environment's temperature changes, they will try to adjust their body to that environment's temperature. Okay, so they will not have same temperature all the time in all the situations, right? Say for example, humans are warm-blooded animals. That means, can you tell me what is our body temperature? It will be around 35 to 36 degrees centigrade, isn't it? See, this 35 to 36 degrees centigrade remains constant throughout our life. Okay, the environment may be cold or the environment may be hot. We may be under water or we may be in a sky. Our body temperature is always same, guys. It remains 35 to 37 degrees centigrade only. Right? This is what we call warm-blooded animals. But fishes are cold-blooded. That means they do not have same temperature all the time. If the environment is cold, their body temperature becomes cold. If the environment is hot, their body temperature becomes hot. Like that, their body temperature always depends on the external environment. But our body temperature do not depend on external environment. Okay, so whatever may be the climate changes, our body temperature always remains same all the time throughout our life. Clear? So this is what the difference between cold-blooded animals and warm-blooded animals like humans. Right? So cold-blooded in the sense, it is not that the blood is cold, it is that they cannot control their body temperature. That feature is called as cold-blooded. Right? So they are cold-blooded animals. Cold-blooded animals. Fine. So the next point is they lay eggs. Yes or no? So they do not give birth to younger organisms. They always lay eggs. From the egg, the living organism comes outside. Right? So they always lay eggs. So we call, if some organism is laying egg, then such an organism is called as oviparous. Yes or no? Oviparous. They are oviparous. Anything that is laying egg is called oviparous. anything that is giving birth to younger ones. Like humans, we do not lay egg. We always give birth to another organism, like a living organism, right? So such a condition is called as viviparous. Okay, but anything that is laying egg is called oviparous. Fine. So these are the main features of the class Pisces. And one more last feature is there, that is some fishes have bony skeleton. I'm talking about skeleton. Okay, skeleton, that is, I'm talking about endoskeleton, that is the skeleton that is there inside the body is called endoskeleton. Endo means inside. So every organism inside there will be some skeleton, right? I'm talking about that inside skeleton, which is also called as endoskeleton. So some fishes have bony skeleton. Okay, endoskeleton is bone. It is made up of small bones. And some have just cartilage. Some have just cartilage. Okay, so they do not have bones, they just have cartilage. You know what examples? The fishes which have bony skeleton, examples are rohu, fish variety rohu, and tuna fish. You might have heard tuna fish. And the fishes that have just cartilage is shark. All shark varieties, they do not have bones in them, they just have cartilage. Clear? So these are the main characteristics you have to remember about the fishes. Clear? So we have many varieties of fishes, right? And how do they move? How do these fishes move? They have muscular tail. Muscular tail is there, and this tail helps in the movement. Helps in movement, isn't it? Say this is what we call muscular tail, and this helps in movement. And they also have fins. Fins also helps for swimming, flipping, right? So this is all about fishes. Next, we will discuss about the next class, amphibia. Coming to the next class, amphibia. See, this amphibian word we have already seen in case of plant phylums. Which division under Plantae is called as amphibians? Bryophyta. Yes or no? So, Bryophyta. So why we call bryophytes as amphibians of plant kingdom? It's because they can live in water and they also live on a land, right? So similar way, amphibians are the organisms, like all organisms under amphibians can live in both water as well as land. Okay, if they have to survive, they want both land and water. So such organisms which live on both land and water are called amphibians. Can you able to recall an examples of amphibians? Frog. Just remember the frog. Frog can live in water and it can also stay on a land. And actually it requires both for the survival. Okay, so if it doesn't live in a water, if it doesn't goes to water, it cannot live. If it is not living on a land, then also it cannot survive. So for its survival, it needs both water as well as land. Actually, for laying eggs, it needs water. All amphibians lay eggs only in a water, guys. So why do they need water? For laying eggs, for the development of eggs. Clear? Fine. See, first and foremost, what point you can write under amphibians is they live on both land and water. Okay, so they live in both land and water. So they are called amphibians. Amphibians. Okay, you know what is the meaning of the word amphi? Amphi in the sense dwell. Dwell in the sense, two lives. Like they should live in both water and they want land also for their survival. Okay, so dwell in the sense double, like two. They live in water as well as land. So that's why they are called amphibians. So usually what happens is, why they require water? It's because they lay eggs in water. Okay, so water is necessary for laying eggs, for the development of eggs. Clear? Fine. And coming to their body, skin may be soft or rough. In some amphibians, the skin is soft. In some amphibians, the skin is rough. Okay. And very important point here you have to remember is skin has mucus glands. Mucus glands. So what do you mean by mucus? Mucus is, sticky liquid. Sticky liquid. Say for example, when we have cold, we get a colorless sticky liquid from our nose, isn't it? So that's what we call mucus. So mucus generating glands are present in a skin. Okay, so that's why skin is slimy. Slimy in the sense always moist or slippery. It is slippery. Can you hold a frog very easily? It slips from our hands. Have you ever tried holding a frog? So it has that moisture in the skin and it can slip also very easily from our hand, isn't it? It's because the mucus is present on a skin because they have mucus secreting glands. Okay, so that's the reason the skin is slimy or slippery, we say. Even these animals are cold-blooded animals. So I think I no need to give too much explanation on the word cold-blooded, isn't it? So what do you mean by cold-blooded? Just they cannot control their body temperature, isn't it? Their body temperature is not same always in all the seasons. Their body temperature always depends on the temperature of environment. This is a very, very important point, right? So that's why they are called cold-blooded animals. And they have three-chambered heart. Clear? Say, can you recall the number of chambers present in the fish's heart? 2 chambers. But here in the amphibians, how many chambers are there in a heart? 3 chambers. So they have 3-chambered heart. And the next point is respiration. That means they take up oxygen and they liberate carbon dioxide is through gills or lungs. Okay, some amphibians have developed lungs also, right? So they may respire through either gills or lungs. So this is the major characteristics of amphibians. So very important characteristic that you should not forget is this one. So they have a capacity to live in both land and water, right? And another one is they have mucus glands which secretes mucus, so the skin is slimy or slippery. They are also cold-blooded animals. They also have 3-chambered heart and the respiration is through gills or lungs. Clear? That's all. So coming to the examples of amphibians. So what examples you can give here? Frog is one example. Toads are an example, right? And salamander. Salamander is another example. Okay. And actually one more point you can list out, right? The point is, they have developed limbs. developed limbs. Right? So if you have to draw a frog, how do you draw it? It has limbs, isn't it? So these limbs are actually helpful for, crawling or, climbing or whatever it is. Anyway, it doesn't look like a frog, but still, these are called the legs and hands, the leg type of things or hands type of things. These are limbs. So they have actually quite developed limbs which are helpful for the movements. So this is all about the characteristics of amphibians. So in the next class, we will discuss about the characteristics of reptilia, aves as well as mammals. Till then, keep revising the concept and see you in the next class. Thank you.